Hello, happy people. I hope you are having just an absolutely amazing day today and that your day's going super mega well. So I thought that today I would deviate from my top 10 films sometimes. I recently did my top 10 board games, so I thought it would be fun to do my top 10 musical artists and then next week do my top 10 albums. Some of those will be in my top 10s. I thought that'd be fun. All right. So in high school, starting in 9th grade all the way up through 12th grade, I was a member of a choir at my school, and church choir too. And I was in all state choir, all quantity choir, and that sort of a thing. So I'm definitely a singer and that sort of thing. I took piano for 10 years. I practiced it since then, so I wouldn't retain it. And that sort of thing. Violin too as a kid. So I'm definitely somebody with a lot of passion for music and that sort of a thing. And I started off growing up. My first sort of I was born in '76, right? So my first sort of contemporary music that I listened to that was pop music was actually the oldies station. Growing up in Southern West Virginia, from Charleston, West Virginia, and it was an ABC news station sometimes too. No, it was an oldies station, and that sort of a thing. I remember Del Shannon's "Runaway" coming across the stair very, very early on, and me listening to this, and loved it so much. That's probably one of my first favorite songs, and that sort of a thing. And then I slipped into liking Chicago as my favorite oldies band at that time, and then I picked up some of their some albums also by the Moody Blues. They were my second favorite band in this era, and that sort of a thing. Then I started listening to contemporary music on the Charleston radio. Modern pop stuff, and in the early '90s for folks, and so as I was getting older in high school, and then in college too, coming back in like summers or vacations and that sort of thing, up through when I graduated in '99. So basically, then I was listening the song by the Real McCoy, "Another Night," hit me hard. I sort of embraced electronic music then, and that sort of thing. And that was a time when Depeche Mode was just putting out like Violator and that sort of thing. So I started picking up some of their albums here and there, and they became my favorite group. And my second favorite group at that time was the Pet Shop Boys. Well, also a great electronic group from the New Wave era from the 80s and that sort of thing. And then I would regularly listen to the radio station. My favorite was the 3-hour dance party on Friday nights and that sort of thing from 9 to midnight. Love that lots. And that sort of a thing. And then I started listening to some music. At that time, there was a website called mp3.com where you can go and download MP3s for free. They were typically like samples or maybe one or two, things typically from independent artists that were moving to sell their things. And so I did a deep dive into the independent music world, particularly electronic stuff too. And hit a lot of groups. Then after that website closed, or just to follow up, I would buy there were a couple of independent music sites that I would buy some electronic bands from like Wolfsheim, or MASH, that sort of thing. Right, you'll see one of those sitting on top, and there you are. And then once the site closed down, I moved more to buy things in various different places and that sort of thing online. So yeah, but that's the ideas and so forth. Then I embraced so when people ask me my favorite genre, I will typically lead with EDM, electronic dance music, faster stuff and that sort of thing. But if they ask me some more specifics, I'll tell them that due to my influences of Chicago and other groups from that era, jazz fusion from the late 60s through early 70s and such. And then also, instead of just general dance music, it's actually Balearic beat. That sort of more laid back, that sort of a thing. And so those are my two key genres. You'll see lots of people hit my top 10 musical artists. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So number 10 is a genre. It is a jazz fusion organ from for 60s and 70s. It's Blood, Sweat, and Tears. They were great. They performed at all the big events. They actually were nominated for a thing like a Woodstock and that sort of a thing. Heavily influential in the area. Great music today. And that sort of a thing. I think the music is incredibly strong. Love it lots. And they're my number 10 group. All right, my number 9 group is Moby. See them in concert. I was living in Detroit. Love him lots. He's a great guy. His stuff is so listenable. So great album tracks. You don't need to be listening to just his hits and that sort of thing. He's actually the first artist to have an album where every track was sold. Not just as singles, but as like for commercials and that sort of thing. He's just an absolutely classic. I love him lots. All right, number 8 is Enigma from the early 80s, 90s rather. I listened to their first song on MTV, Sadness Part 1, and I was like, wow, I just didn't know music could do that. I bought all their albums on CD. Today, I listen to them pretty regularly too. He's a very often one. Typically, I'll just hit Enigma into my iTunes and then just listen to his stuff. Oftentimes just from thing to thing. Or sometimes I'll just hit the shuffle button, so I'll be surprised. Love them lots. Enigma's a great group. Alrighty, number 7 is the Moody Blues. Once my number 2 album for a long time. Moody Blues is strong stuff. So they started off as a one band with one hit in British Invasion. And then they tried to follow it up and just weren't able to do that. So then they did an album that was more orchestral rock and that sort of thing called Days of Future Past. It's the second concept album. They were doing it at the same time as the Beatles one too. Great stuff, love it lots. I started to fall, and so I started to buy some of their stuff. I bought the greatest hits thing first, and then slowly would move into buying the albums too here and there online. Or from the mail order catalogs and that sort of thing. Or in our stores occasionally too. Loved it so much. Great stuff, love it lots. So for me, I love them also because they were a symphonic rock first with things like Days of Future Past and Tuesday Afternoon. Symphonic rock is basically code for progressive rock. So they are, by many considered to be the first progressive rock album artists out there. All right, this is top 6. Number 6 is Chicago. One's my favorite group band of all time. So great stuff, love it lots. I particularly enjoy their early era when they're doing jazz fusion rather than the 80s or 90s when they're doing more slower ballads and such. But I still like them even then. I think they're great stuff, love them lots. I've seen them in concert a few times. So the Echoing Green is number 6. Number 5 is the highest hitting independent album person rather, and so forth. This is a group by Joey Belville and that sort of thing. It's a synth pop group, so they do synth pop and so forth. And they are sometimes some of the music is Christian, some of the music isn't, and that sort of a thing. And he says, "I'm a Christian artist, but I'm not a Christian who is. I'm a Christian who is an artist, but I'm not a Christian artist." And that sort of a thing. But they have been, published by Christian labels and such too. Love them lots. Incredibly strong stuff. All right, number 4 is Depeche Mode. They were once my number 1. Then they flip-flopped with the Pet Shop Boys after I decided that was a little more bouncy than less gloomy, and that sort of a thing. And now they're hitting at number 4. For you folks, they're an absolute classic. In fact, I listened to like 3 or 4 of their songs earlier this morning. Lots. Absolutely strong group. So, all right, number 3, top 3 time is the Pet Shop Boys. Like they had done a flip flop, and now they're hitting a little higher with them and so forth. Great duo, love them lots. Even some of their albums that are not in the 80s, were typically considered to be at their best, are incredibly strong, and I think better albums. Love them so much. They are an incredibly strong group. All right, top 2. Number 2 has my number 1 as my favorite song of all time, and that's Schiller's "Dream of You," also by Peter Hepner, being sung by and a couple of others folks. Love him lots. He's incredibly strong. It started off as a group in Germany, but then they split up and now it's just one guy, and that sort of a thing. They started off a little more Enigma-ish, like a German Enigma, but now they've moved more to just general electronica. Love Schiller so very, very much. He's hitting number 2 at the penultimate spot is not a bad place to be. Number 1 is DJ Roger Shaw, who record as Sun Lounger in his. He's not doing like just as a DJ, just doing mixes and that sort of thing. He's incredibly strong, incredibly talented. He has mastered Balearic beat to my mind, which tries to sound like the Balearic House and that sort of a thing. So it's got things like electronic guitar, no, sorry, steel guitars rather, and that sort of a thing. Some acoustic instruments, some greater down music. I love his slower film, his more filled out stuff. I love it so much. And so he definitely has mastered the music of the beach, if that makes sense. All right, so that is number 1. All right, so here's my top 10. Once again, number 10 is Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Number 9 is Moby. Number 8 is Enigma. Number 7 is The Moody Blues. Number 6 is Chicago. Number 5 is The Aqua and Green. Number 4 is Depeche Mode. Number 3 is Pet Shop Boys. Number 2 is Schiller. And number 1 is DJ Roger Shaw, a.k.a. Sun Lounger. For you folks. Alrighty, so there you are. So what are your top 10 musical artists? Be happy to engage you with it further in the comments below, whatever your thoughts are. I'm not judgy. Everybody's list is just as important as them all, and that sort of thing. So please share me in the comments what yours are. Right, I'm happy to engage you with that further. Right, no issues, no comments. If we don't have to agree. Alright, so there you are. Thanks everybody. Next week I'll be doing my top 10 albums of all time, and there'll be some that are by these artists and some that aren't, and then it's fun. None of mine. And then I'll also be looking at my tops. I recently did my top 10 board games a couple of weeks ago. Last week I did my top 10 independent films of all time, and that sort of a thing. So that'll be fun for you guys to knock out. So check out the previous top 10s for you folks. Also, I do a lot of other things. On Wednesday, I did a review of video games like Crusader Kings 3 from 2025. Typically, other ones do. Tomorrow, I do a dedicated to the lost storytelling art of the serials. We're going to and such, and so we'll be doing the TV serial Time Meddler from 1965 and finish this up. The second season of the Doctor Who, and then we'll be moving back to movie serials like Flash Gordon or Buck Rogers or Tarzan, that sort of thing. Love it lots. Heavily influential, but we sort of forgotten it, and that sort of a thing. On Mondays, I do reviews of older things in the RPG or war game worlds. I just finished up D3, Vault of the Drow by Gary Gygax for 78, and I'll be finishing up that series with Q1. And then on the other days of the week, I do reviews of older written media that I read. Things like books or short stories or poems sometimes too, or novellas. That sort of stuff. So if you like that stuff, those 7 things, definitely check out my videos, watch them, do the YouTube stuff, and like and share and subscribe and just watch them, that sort of thing. And if you're feeling frisky, please hit the bell icon to be notified of my videos. Alright, and there you are. You know, as I mentioned before, those older things. It's also the passion of the channel, and where its name comes from too. The worst thing about new books. It's a quote by a French philosopher named Jean Joubert, who said that the worst thing about them was they kept us from reading the old ones, right? And there's definitely some older stuff that we might have forgotten about for you folks. And then finally, I just want to thank you so very, very much, for taking some time out of your day and just investing it and watching my videos, right? Because we all have so many things, right, that are happening in our lives, and we're pulled in so many different directions, right? So the fact that you spent this time with me, it's incredibly humbling, and I appreciate it so very, very much. So thanks again, and have an amazing day.